The voicemail came at 6:47 inches the morning, 3 hours before the biggest event of my career. I was standing at the floor-to-ceiling windows of the Whitmore House, holding a cup of coffee that had gone cold while I mentally walked through every table placement, every floral arrangement, every lighting cue I had rehearsed for the past 4 months. The Callaway wedding was 160 guests, a $340,000 contract, and the kind of event that got photographed for magazines and sent inquiries flooding into your inbox for the next 2 years. It was the reason I had gutted this 1890s Victorian mansion down to the studs and rebuilt it into the most sought-after private event venue in Charleston. It was the reason I had not slept more than 5 hours a night in 6 months. Then my phone buzzed against the windowsill, and I saw my stepmother's name on the screen. I hadn't spoken to her in 4 years. Not since the afternoon she stood in my father's kitchen and told me, with her arms folded and her chin lifted, that I was being selfish for not refinancing my starter apartment to fund my stepbrother's restaurant idea. Not since I walked out of that house with a duffel bag and the full understanding that I was, from that moment forward, entirely on my own. I should have let it go to voicemail. I almost did. But something in the pit of my stomach, the same animal instinct that had kept me alive through 3 years of 60-hour weeks and a construction loan that nearly broke me, made me press play. Her voice filled the quiet room, smooth and practiced, the tone she used when she wanted something and had already decided she deserved it. "Clara, it's your mother. We're in town. Your brother told us about the venue. Gorgeous pictures online, truly. We thought we'd stop by today and catch up. It's been too long. We'll be there around 10. She called herself my mother. She had never called herself my mother a single day in the 14 years she had been married to my father. I set the phone face down on the windowsill and looked out at the garden, where my event team was already arranging ceremony chairs in the morning light. My venue manager, Priya, was directing 2 assistants, with the easy confidence that had made her indispensable to me since day one. She was 23, efficient, and absolutely loyal. I had hired her out of a hospitality program at the College of Charleston and paid her a salary that made her cry a little at the offer letter. I turned the phone back over and called my father. It rang twice. "Hey, sweetheart, Dad. Why is she calling me? How does she know about the Whitmore?" A pause. The particular pause he always made when he knew something he wished he didn't. "Your stepbrother found your business on Instagram." He showed her. "You know how she is, Clara. She's proud of you. We both are." "She's proud of me," I repeated. "She just wants to see you. It's been a long time. It's been a long time because she told me I was a bad daughter for not bankrupting myself to rescue Marcus from a business idea he had for 48 hours. Dad, I have an event today. A major event. I cannot have them here. It's just a quick visit. An hour. Less. Come on." My father has always been a good man trapped inside a profound inability to disappoint the woman he married. It wasn't cruelty. It was weakness. And sometimes weakness does the same damage. "Don't bring them here," I said, and hung up. At 10:14, a black SUV pulled up the gravel drive. I watched from the second-floor landing as my stepmother stepped out of the passenger side in a cream blazer and heeled boots that were absolutely wrong for a gravel driveway. She looked up at the facade of the Whitmore House with the expression of someone calculating square footage. My stepbrother Marcus climbed out after her, phone already in hand, already filming the exterior. My father came last, hands in his pockets, not meeting anyone's eyes. Priya intercepted them at the front door. I could see her professional smile from 20 feet away, the one she used for difficult vendors and demanding clients. I took the stairs down slowly, letting myself breathe. "Clara." My stepmother opened her arms when she saw me, as if we were 2 old friends at a reunion. She smelled like the Chanel No. 5 she had always worn, the one she bought with the credit card my father paid off every month. "This place is extraordinary. I knew you had it in you." She had told me, 4 years ago, that my dream of owning an event venue was a fantasy for people who don't understand how money works. "This is a working venue," I said. "I have a major event today. You can't be here. We won't be long." She waved a hand around the foyer. "We just wanted to see what you've built. Marcus has some things to talk to you about anyway." Marcus lowered his phone. He had the look of someone who had been rehearsed, coached, positioned. He was 26 years old and had never, in the entire time I had known him, held a job for longer than 4 months. "It's about the restaurant," he said. I looked at him for a long moment. "You don't have a restaurant. I'm opening one. I've been working on it for a year. I have a location locked, a concept, a menu. I've been working with investors." He pulled his phone out and turned it toward me. There was a logo on the screen, a name, a color palette. "I just need bridge financing, 200,000, just to get through the build-out and the first 3 months. "No," I said. My stepmother's expression shifted, just slightly. The warmth went out of it like a lamp being switched off. "We're not asking for a gift," she said. Her voice was still pleasant, but it had developed an edge. "It's a loan, an investment. You have this beautiful property, Clara. You clearly have access to capital. Marcus is your brother. He's not my brother." The foyer went quiet. Priya had positioned herself near the check-in table, close enough to hear everything, and I saw her go very still. He has lived in your father's house since you were 16 years old, my stepmother said. He is family, and family supports each other. You know what it's like to need help starting something. Your father helped you. My father had not helped me. My father had co-signed a lease on a one-bedroom apartment when I was 22, and never mentioned it again. My stepmother had made his life miserable for doing it until I signed him off the lease 8 months later. The gap between what she was saying and what had actually happened was so wide I felt almost dizzy standing on the edge of it. I need you to leave, I said. I have 160 guests arriving in under 3 hours. I will not have this conversation today. You'll have it eventually, she said. We're staying at the Hampton Inn on King Street. Your father thought we could all have dinner tonight. Work this out like adults. She turned and walked back toward the front door with the unhurried confidence of someone who believes they have already won. I stood in the foyer and watched them go. Then I picked up my phone and called Diane. Diane Marsh had been my business law professor at Clemson. She was 61 years old, had the posture of a retired military officer, and had spent 30 years advising small business owners before she ever set foot in a classroom. When I had first pitched her on investing in the Whitmore renovation 2 years ago, she had read my entire business plan in 40 minutes, asked me 14 very specific questions, and written me a check for $60,000. She was the most precise person I had ever met, and she was the first person I called when something felt like it was about to go sideways. She answered on the second ring. Tell me, she said. I told her. I gave her the voicemail, the foyer confrontation, the $200,000, all of it. I heard her breathing on the other end. Slow and even, the way she breathed when she was thinking through a problem. How much do you know about Marcus's situation? She asked. Does he actually have a location? Investors? I have no idea. He could have a signed lease or a napkin sketch. I genuinely cannot tell. Find out, she said. Call your father tonight. Not her, your father. Get details. If Marcus is borrowing money from private lenders and it's gone sideways, there's a play here. But I need information first. I have a wedding in 3 hours, Diane. I know. Go do your wedding. Call me at 9. I did the wedding. I did it beautifully. Because I have never in my life let personal chaos leak into professional performance. The ceremony was in the garden under the oak trees. The reception in the main hall with the chandeliers I had sourced from a estate sale in Savannah, and rewired myself over one December weekend. The Calloway bride cried when she walked in and saw the room. Her mother hugged me twice. The photographer, who had shot events at every major venue in the Southeast, told me she had never worked somewhere that felt like it had been built from actual love. At 8:47 p.m., when the last guests had gone and Priya was managing the breakdown crew, I sat on the back porch steps with my shoes off and called my father. He answered quickly, like he'd been waiting. I need you to tell me what's actually going on with Marcus, I said. Not her version. Yours. A long pause. He borrowed money, my father said. About $180,000 from a private lender. The restaurant space fell through. The investors backed out. And now he's behind on the payments. The lender has been aggressive. How aggressive? They showed up at the house, Clara. Twice. They took pictures of his car. Who's the lender? Another pause. A company called Meridian Capital Solutions, based in Atlanta. Does Marcus have anything in writing? A promissory note? A contract? I think so. She has copies of everything. Of course she does, I said. Dad, listen to me very carefully. Do not sign anything. Do not let Marcus sign anything. Do not give anyone any money. I need 48 hours. Clara, 48 hours. Can you do that? He agreed. He was always better at agreeing than refusing. I called Diane. She listened to the whole thing again, asking sharp questions every 30 seconds. When I finished, I heard the distinctive sound of her pulling up her laptop. Meridian Capital Solutions, she said. Give me 2 minutes. I waited on the porch, watching a moth circle the garden light. Okay, she said. This is a predatory lending operation. I've seen the name before. They target young entrepreneurs with poor credit, charge usurious interest rates, and when the borrower defaults, they sell the note at a steep discount rather than pursue litigation. They hate courtrooms. Too much scrutiny. Can we buy the note? A beat. How much cash can you access without touching operating funds? I thought about the line of credit I had established with my bank 6 months ago and never drawn down on, the one I had set up as emergency reserves for exactly the kind of catastrophe that comes out of nowhere in the event business. 120. Maybe 130. Comfortably. If Marcus owes 180 and they're looking to exit the note, they'll take 60 cents on the dollar. Maybe less. I can make the call in the morning. I did a deal with their parent company 4 years ago. Another pause. Clara, if we buy this note, you become the holder. You become the creditor. Marcus owes you. I know, I said. And if we document their assets, or their lack of assets, before you show your hand, and we have it on record that they have no liquid means to repay this, then the note triggers default provisions immediately. And if there's collateral, my father's house is the collateral, I said. That's what she said. Marcus borrowed against their home equity. Diane was quiet for 5 seconds. Then we proceed very carefully. Because if this goes wrong, your father loses his house. It won't go wrong, I said. Meet me at my office at 8 in the morning. Don't respond to any of their messages tonight. I sat on the steps for a long time after I hung up, listening to my breakdown crew carry chairs through the garden and the sound of the city settling into its late-night rhythm. I thought about my father. I thought about the fact that he had let her bring them here, to my venue, on my biggest day, and that he had done it because he could not bring himself to say no to a woman who had made his life and mine progressively smaller for 14 years. Then I thought about what I was going to do, and I felt something clarify inside me. Not anger. Anger is hot and imprecise. What I felt was cold and very, very specific. Diane and I spent 3 hours the next morning building the structure. She made the call to Meridian Capital's acquisition desk at 10 a.m. I listened from the chair across from her desk while she negotiated in a voice so pleasant it should have been illegal. The same register that I imagined she had used to dismantle witnesses for 3 decades. By 10:47, we had a verbal commitment. 62 cents on the dollar. $111,600 for a note worth $180,000. At 11:15, I wired the funds. At 11:16, I became the legal holder of my stepbrother's debt. Then I called my stepmother and told her I had reconsidered. I want to help, I said, but I need to do this carefully. There are tax implications for a transfer this size from a business account. I need you, Marcus, and my father, to come to the Whitmore tonight. I want to walk you through the structure of the transaction. Bring Marcus's promissory note and any correspondence from the lender. She agreed before I finished the sentence. I spent the afternoon with Diane drafting the paperwork. A personal guarantee agreement, an asset acknowledgement form, a default acceleration clause that would become active the moment they signed a declaration of financial insolvency, which was exactly what I intended to ask them to declare, framed as a routine part of the transaction. They'll sign, Diane said, reviewing the final version. As long as they think it benefits them. It will benefit them, I said. Right up until it doesn't. At 6 o'clock, Priya helped me set up the small meeting room off the main foyer. A round table, 4 chairs, a carafe of water, a legal-sized folder at each place. She didn't ask questions. She simply set the room and left, closing the door behind her. At 6:22, they arrived. My stepmother came in looking expectant, the particular brightness in her face of someone who has already spent the money in their head. Marcus had put on a button-down shirt, which I recognized as an attempt at seriousness. My father walked in last, hands in his pockets, and for a moment, he met my eyes, and I saw something that might have been guilt. I looked back at him and felt the complicated weight of loving someone who consistently fails you. Thank you for coming, I said. Sit down, please. They sat. I've thought a lot about this, I said, keeping my voice even and warm. Marcus's family. I don't want to watch him go through a default. That's not something I can live with. I paused, letting that land. But a transaction of this size from a business account triggers compliance requirements. My accountant is very strict about this. I need documentation. I opened the folder in front of me and set my phone on the table, propped against the carafe, camera facing the group, a position that looked like nothing in particular. For the IRS record, I need to capture this conversation on video. It establishes that this is a secured debt purchase, not a gift, which changes the tax treatment entirely. It saves me roughly $38,000 in liability. My accountant requires it. I pressed record before they could object. My stepmother looked at the phone, then at me, then at the document in front of her. Greed has a particular quality to it. It makes people incurious about the fine print. It had always been her most reliable characteristic. Whatever you need, she said. Good. I folded my hands on the table. For the record, Marcus, can you confirm the amount of the outstanding debt with Meridian Capital Solutions? Marcus shifted in his chair. It's around $180,000, with fees. And can you confirm that you and your parents currently have no liquid assets available to service this debt? I need this on record so the IRS can see why the repayment is being structured as a debt purchase rather than a family loan. He looked at my stepmother. She nodded, barely perceptibly. That's correct, Marcus said. We don't have the cash on hand. And the collateral on the original note? I said. For the record. The house, my father said quietly. He hadn't been asked, but he answered. And I saw something shift in his face when he said it, like he was hearing himself from a distance. Thank you. I let a small silence settle. And one more thing for the audit trail. This is standard, just to show the IRS that family financial transfers have a history in this family. I need you to acknowledge any prior instances of shared family funds. Specifically, the $7,500 I contributed to Marcus's first business attempt 4 years ago. I had not contributed anything 4 years ago. They had demanded it and I had refused, which is why I was sitting across from them now instead of somewhere with a much smaller phone screen. But Marcus spoke before I could clarify. Yeah, that's right. And there was the thing with your savings account. When you were in college, I kept my face still. I had not brought up my savings account. He had volunteered it. Can you be specific? For the record? I said softly. He glanced at my stepmother. She was looking at the document in front of her, running her finger along a paragraph she wasn't actually reading. We moved some money from your account, Marcus said, with the casual confidence of someone who has never been held accountable for anything. To cover a gap when I was getting started. My mom needed the funds quickly and your dad handled the transfer. It was like a family bridge thing. How much? 11,000, I think. He shrugged. Somewhere around there. He had just told me on video that my father had made an unauthorized transfer of $11,000 from my account without my knowledge or consent. I had known about the money. I had never known exactly how much or who had executed the transfer. I had never had it on record. Until now. I picked up the pen from the table and slid the personal guarantee document toward Marcus. Sign on the guarantor line, please. Both of you. I looked at my stepmother, then at Marcus. Your father should sign as a co-guarantor, since the house is the collateral. My stepmother took the pen. She signed with the flourish of someone who believes they are closing a good deal. Marcus signed quickly, barely looking at the page. My father hesitated for 3 seconds, and I held his gaze, and then he signed. I pulled the documents back and straightened them into a neat stack. The wire went through this morning, I said. My stepmother smiled. So it's done? The debt is cleared? The debt to Meridian is cleared, I said, because I purchased it. As of yesterday morning, I am the note holder. Marcus owes me. A pause. What? Marcus said. The personal guarantee you just signed confirms the debt and acknowledges that you have no liquid assets to repay it. That triggers the immediate default acceleration clause on page 3, which you didn't read. I opened the folder and slid the relevant page toward them. The house is collateral on the original note, which I now hold. The lien is active. My stepmother stood up from her chair. This is fraud. You tricked us. I structured a legal debt acquisition and documented it on video, I said, which also captured Marcus's voluntary disclosure of an unauthorized withdrawal from my personal account approximately 7 years ago. That's a separate matter I'll be discussing with my attorney. You can't, she stopped, looked at the phone on the table. The little red dot still visible in the corner of the screen. Sit down, I said. My voice was calm in the way that the building's old walls were calm, solid, unhurried, built to last. We're going to talk about how this gets resolved, and we're going to do it without yelling, because I have a venue to run, and I would prefer not to upset my staff. She sat. My father had not moved. He was looking at his hands. I talked to Diane that night for 40 minutes. The next morning, she filed the documentation with the court. The personal guarantee was airtight. The video was clear. The default clause was unambiguous. 3 weeks later, I received an offer from my stepmother's attorney to settle the debt for 75 cents on the dollar. I countered at par full face value and included a demand for restitution of the $11,000, plus compound interest over 7 years. They held out for 9 days. Then they took the deal. The house did not sell. My father did not lose his home. I had not wanted that, and I had structured the deal with enough leverage that I could release the lien as part of the settlement without it looking like mercy, which it partially was. What I wanted was the money that was mine and had always been mine. What I wanted was the acknowledgement, on paper, that they had taken something, and that the taking had a price. Marcus got a wage assignment, 15% of his gross income, for 8 years, directed to an account in my name. His attorney tried to argue that he was between jobs and had no income to assign. I submitted his social media posts from the past 6 months. 4 sponsored brand deals, 2 consulting invoices he'd uploaded to a freelance platform in an apparent moment of carelessness, and a Venmo transaction marked restaurant consulting fee. Let's get this bread for $8,000. The judge was not amused. My stepmother called me once after the judgment was final. I let it go to voicemail. I didn't play it for 2 days, and when I finally did, it was 28 seconds of silence, followed by the sound of her hanging up. My father texted me on a Sunday morning, 3 weeks after the settlement closed. No preamble, no apology, no explanation. Just, I didn't know about the savings account transfer. She handled it. I should have known. I read it 3 times. Then I put my phone in my pocket and went downstairs to open the Whitmore for a bridal shower that had been on the books since February. Priya had already set the garden tables with the white linen and the low floral centerpieces I liked, the ones that didn't block the guests' sightlines. The morning light came through the oak trees in long, clean angles and landed on everything like a benediction. I had not answered my father's text by the time the guests arrived. I wasn't sure when I would. There are debts that get paid in courts, and debts that take longer, that don't have interest rates or filing deadlines, that you sit with for years before you know what they're worth. What I knew, standing at the door of the house I had rebuilt with my own money and my own hands, watching 40 women in sundresses come up my gravel drive laughing, was this. They had spent 14 years making themselves comfortable in my life without my permission. They had taken what they wanted and called it family. They had showed up at the thing I had built without being invited and assumed, right up until the moment they signed their names, that I would be what I had always been to them. A resource. They had been wrong about me for the last time. I am not a daughter in that house anymore. I am the one who holds the note.